Welcome to the Rich Life Recipe podcast, a show about what it is to have a rich life. What is a rich life? How do we determine what a rich life is? And before we even get to that, you might be asking, well, who are these people and why should we care? So allow me to introduce myself. I'm Jason Allan Scott. I'm an investor, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a speaker. And I think my main job in this world is to explain things simply because I'm a simple person that needs things explained simply to me. But I've brought someone who understands things much more comprehensively. And that is my incredible co-host, Alicia. Alicia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jason, for those kind words. I am Alicia Shiro. I am the owner and CEO of AJS&x. I specialize in unique and one-of-a-kind events for corporate clients. One of our specialties is bringing in celebrity talent because we know that they drive attendance. And typically their stories are ones of overachieving all sorts of difficulties. I am also a one-woman show and have been featured in Forbes as a solopreneur for achieving over 1 million in revenue in a very short amount of time. Although that really doesn't seem like much money these days. So Jason and I are super excited to talk to other successful people who have a recipe for a successful life. And we are super excited to share those pieces of information that will help you also achieve a successful life.
And what we should also add is that part of the show is to define success. Because what might look like success to me might not be something that Alicia thinks as successful. She said it herself. She doesn't think 1 million in revenue is a big deal. Where I come from, doing 1 million is insane with a team, let alone as we both are, because that's how we met through Forbes, through being one person, no employee, 7-figure founders, which makes up for less than 0.4% of the world. So we are in a very small group. But I think we were both interested in this idea of what is success? What is rich? What is a rich life? And as we mentioned, we want to bring people on that perhaps you think, well, that's definitely rich. Or actually, I love the way they handle that, whether it's their decision on lifestyle, whether it's a decision on food, whether it's a decision on who they hang out with, or where they decide to live. These are the things we want to bring you week after week. Every Wednesday, in fact, we're going to bring you someone that we think has some part, if not the whole recipe to a rich life.
I agree. And I think for our purposes in this show, what's going to separate ours from other shows is giving tangible, what's the word I'm looking for? Tangible items that you can put into practice and put into place to really achieve whatever that rich life is for you. I'm always dream big. Someday I'd like to own a private jet, an island, whatever that is for you. Is it materialistic? Sometimes it is. But more importantly, I'm a firm believer in health. So we really want to focus on health, wealth, and wisdom, how to get healthy and wealthy.
And wise.
And wise. Definitely.
And I think
wise.
that's another thing. I think the reason that we've brought the two of us together is because we are from very different worlds. Even as we do this, we're from across the pond, one in the US, one in the UK. We come from very different places and we have very different ideas of what a rich life is. And by breaking it up into these 3 pillars, healthy, wealthy, and wise, we think we can put together a recipe that anyone can follow to find their own rich life.
Exactly. And I love that. And I think when you really drill down to how people became successful, what challenges they overcame, it resonates with other people, not just to be another inspiring story, but really giving tangible results and just wisdom about how they were able to achieve it, what steps they took from the very first one to the very last one.
So I guess a good place to start is to ask yourself, what is wealth? Right? We're healthy, wealthy, and wise, but let's start with wealth. To you, what is wealth? If I was to ask you for 2 or 3 points on what you think wealth is, what would you say to me?
For me personally, I would
Hmm.
say being healthy. That's always first in my mind because I have had some experiences where I was not healthy, such as being thrown off a horse and breaking your back and learning how to walk again. And I know,
Wow.
Jason, you have a history as well where you've had to overcome several health challenges. And I think today, we're so quick to just take some sort of prescription um, and become dependent on that to help us feel better, where we're never really getting to the root of the issue. And I spend a lot of time doing research and what's a holistic approach to this. I have several different health practitioners. I'm almost finished completing an 8-month journey of how to cleanse your cell. Cleanse the cell and get well is what Dr. Pompa says, who I love.
Hmm.
So for me, I would say that is definitely top of mind in step one. If you're not healthy, you cannot do anything else.
I love it.
And what is it for you?
Well, surprisingly, I think health is the ultimate wealth. I think if you're not healthy, you can't be wealthy. I think a sick man has but one dream and one wish, and that's to be healthy. And I think a healthy person has a million ones because they don't realize how great it is to be healthy.
Yeah.
Um, but if I was to break it down to what I think about wealth, I would say it's understanding what the idea of inverted comma rich is. Because to me, rich isn't just about money. It's about having control over my time and my choices. It's about deciding what I do, when I do it, where I do it, with whom I want to do it. It's about creating a systematic life where I can say, I'll never be a boss and I'll never have a boss. It's about creating assets that work for me when I'm not working, inverted comma. It's understanding that bigger doesn't always mean more impact to the world. It's about having an intentional life. That if it's not in my calendar, it's not real. I don't deal with it. That I create big buffers of time where it's just me, where I can go for a walk or go to gym or read a book. That I build a lifestyle that I see as a rich lifestyle that is filled with mini retirements, so that I have these little breaks as opposed to the traditional retirement, right? I've been 67 or 72 or 83, depending on what your country's decided. And I just spend that time doing what I want to do, even though I pretty much do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. But it's also understanding what I'm incredibly scared of. It's about writing down my biggest fears and saying, I'm going to avoid that. Analyzing what could go wrong and avoiding that and planning for that. But I think most importantly, it's realizing that there is a cost of inaction. That what will I pay if I don't make the change? What will I pay if I don't plan to be rich in my own definition of rich? Because I think it's so easy to allow these trivial things to add up, to look at the Joneses, to be enviable to someone who has more, flies first class or flies private or is on the super yacht, without realizing that perhaps I want their prize, but I don't want their process that got them to that prize. And that to me is what wealth is that it's not socially reinforced vanity metrics about how many followers you have or how many times you were viewed or how much money you make, but if you've been true to yourself in your own needs, your own wants. Because I think in the end, to me anyway, there's only three things that count. Did you live, did you love, and did you matter?
That's amazing. I agree. I think it's different for everyone, like you were saying. I think for me, one of my top three would be, you know, the real luxury is designing my day every
Mm,
day.
mm,
There's no What gets me up in the morning when I really have zero energy to get through the day is knowing that I get to decide what I do today and how I do it and when I do it. And I think you can't put a price on that. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to start my own business,
mm.
because having your own business gives you that luxury to design
Absolutely.
your time the way you want and to choose the clients you want, to work with the people you want. I surround myself only with people that are operating at a high vibration. And I think when you mentally go to that place, you start to realize as soon as you're around someone where they're vibrating at. And that vibration can either make or break the entire course of your day.
Mm.
But knowing this, you can function around it where it doesn't, it doesn't mitigate your day because you're aware that not everyone can operate at this high of a level. So
Mm.
you kind of see through things very quickly where maybe they need help or where they're struggling. And I think that comes with time. But I think for me, the other luxury is just mindset. Mindset plays a huge role in a recipe for success because let's face it, starting a business is hard. And if anyone tells you that it's hard, just think it's even harder than what they're saying. It's even harder than you think. But I think you mentioned something earlier about just taking action. One of the things when I'm doing interviews or speaking, I always start with it's better to do something than to do nothing.
Mm.
Even if you don't know what to do, just do something. It puts things into motion. The universe has a way of bringing things to you when you ask for it. And from there, trust your gut and you just kind of keep moving forward. So I think that would be my number two is just being able to have that mindset of, struggles are going to happen. Things are not going to go your way. It is difficult to get up every day and keep moving forward. But when your mind is in the right place, you just keep doing it.
I think it was the great Rumi that said, when you start to walk on the way appears.
Hmm.
And I think that fits
Perfect.
really well with what you just said. And I can't wait in the shows and the episodes to come, us breaking down mindset as an ingredient to a rich life. But while we're on the subject of ingredients, I'm going to ask you, what are your 4 or 5 ingredients um, to a rich life?
Good question. 4 or 5 ingredients to a rich life. I think love is number one for sure. Love just keeps you positive, having that love around you. And it could be a pet. I have a hairless cat. I got to tell you, he cracks me up on my most difficult days. This breed it's a Sphinx. This breed, they very much act like dogs. They have huge personalities. He definitely makes me laugh. So, you can have love from your family, love from your friends, love from your pets, love from wherever. That would be my number one. Number
Mm.
two, consistency. Definitely need consistency in life to make things happen. It doesn't happen overnight. Definitely need to be consistent. Three, I would say this kind of falls in line with consistency, but resilience. People will tell
Mm.
you no, 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 no. You're going to hear no a million times.
Hmm.
So being resilient is a necessary, uh, what would I call it? Essential ingredient.
Mm.
Definitely have to be resilient. Um, this
If
is coming to be more difficult
if
than I thought.
no, what I'd like to push back. Um, with love, you gave a great example. You talked about the love of your pet, right? And this connection that you have, and how you get so much love back just by watching them, and then explain what the cat is. But if we're to drill down on ingredients that someone listening to this podcast right now or watching it can go, oh, that I can action against, because perhaps I can't action against love because I don't have a pet and I don't have a family, and I'm I'm all alone right now trying to work this out. And you've already said how difficult it is, to start a company, that it is about resilience. So if I was to ask you for, if you could try think about this, the specificity is my big word for the day, everyone listening,
Okay.
specificity, the specific ingredient, right? So it's kind of like if you said you're going to make a pizza, you're going to need a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of brown, and I'm like, well, that's not going to help you make a pizza. Like, I need to know, like, is it basil, is it cheese, and is it dough, right? Those are the 3 ingredients that make up those colors. Give me some specific things that I can right now pull out my pen and paper, write these things down, and action against them, because it allows to create a recipe for a rich life.
Okay. So tangible things that one can do
Yes, please.
for, I feel like I would have to ask them questions though to tailor this.
Ask
Um,
yourself. I want you to ask
okay.
yourself, if you look at your own life and you were to sit down with yourself at 23 years old and say, I'm going to give you a couple of pointers, just random lines that I think if you keep going back to these lines in your journal, in your diary, in your recipe, it will allow you to bake a good life, a rich life.
Got it. Okay. So then I would say, and I think this takes me back to my mindset. I think
Hmm.
self-awareness. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you want and how to cultivate that, right?
So,
And then
so
I
number
also,
one, for those,
yep,
so I'm going to break it up because we're going to have
yep,
someone literally, and people listening to this and going, okay, the first thing Alicia's saying is Shakespeare's greatest lesson: to thy own self be true. Unless you know what you want, you will end up doing what everyone else wants from you. So, number
right.
one, we're saying, to thy own self be true. Find out what makes you happy, what drives you, what brings you love, what brings you focus, what brings you energy. Alicia talked really well about the energy of something, the mindset. So understanding yourself is rule number one. Ingredient number one of Alicia's rich life recipe. What is ingredient number two?
Physical and mental well-being, like physically moving your body, work, exercise, staying focused, staying healthy creates the endorphins. That's what I do every day. Every day I do something. I start the day with that.
I love that. So number two, we're saying that it's about moving. It's about using the body, the tool that we have, that every one of us has got, right? So we're saying movement is rule number two. Motion creates emotion, if you will.
Correct. And motion stays in motion.
Love that. One of the rules of science, of life, the
Correct.
eternal
I'm all
rules.
about the drawing and the science,
I
we got to
love that.
draw it in.
I love that. Okay, give me ingredient number three.
Okay, I would say ingredient number 3 would be financial freedom. Isn't that what
Mm,
everybody wants? And it doesn't need to be monetized. It's not a number. It's whatever freedom is for you. So I
mm,
would say knowing what that is. What's your financial freedom?
mm. So, if you will allow me to try and put those in other words, I believe in
Yes.
something called a freedom number, right? Like I
Yes.
know the exact number that I need to be free, and then I try and get that sorted, and then anything over and above that is like I like to say "fu money," the
Right.
ability to
Now,
say, "Yeah, please."
does that stress you out though? Like that number?
No,
Okay, so it works for you.
I don't know
Maybe I
why
should
it
try
works for
it.
me. Yeah, you should. I
I
think
need a
if
number. I think I
okay,
need a number.
it's really easy to do that. All you do is you work out everything that you pay for and all the things that make you happy, and you put them together and you add 5%. That's it. Add 5% to the number.
Really?
That's all it is. Because that is your number. If you go like, okay, well, rent is $800, transport is $300, food is $500, going to the movies is another $200, going for dinners
Okay.
is another $500, and you go, okay, altogether, I need $5,500 a month.
Let
And
me
that's
do
my
some quick
freedom
math
number.
here.
Yeah. I laugh with friends that
Okay.
every morning they wake up and they check their socials. And I'm like, every morning I wake up, I check my bank account. Like I like to know exactly where I am every single day. I want to know where I am on the stock
Wow.
market, where I am with crypto, where I am with cash reserves, where I am with my passive income investments, like my angel investments. I want to test my assumptions about the world. Because I'm so, and I think that's why I'm not stressed. Like you asked the question, doesn't that stress me
Mm,
out? No, because I always know. I always know where I am with my
interesting.
financial.
I love that. Um, I I feel like my number will be so large. But I like that you have a formula. I just my dreams are very, very big. I don't know.
But dreams aren't a freedom number. Those are very
True.
different. So kind of think of
Yes.
it like let's use the Americanisms, right? So baseball. Your
Right.
ultimate is a six. I think it's a six. No, when you hit a home run, you're right. The
A home
ultimate is a
run.
home run. And you
Yes.
know that if you hit a home run, you get to run all the bases, right? That's great. But you also know that the freedom number is actually just to hit it to run to first base. At the very least, you want to get to
Right.
first base.
You
You
want to
don't want
get,
to get
yes.
taken out. But in the ultimate goal, that's hitting it out of the park. But freedom number is just first base. What do I need to do to be free? Then
Mm,
after that, I can swing that bat as many times as I want. I can try whatever. What does that look like? And, some people call it the financial independence number. Some people call it degrees of freedom. But really, it's just this idea of how much do I need to be able to try something else? How much do I need to be able to feel safe? How much do I need to maintain my current lifestyle? That's it. And then I can realistically break free from my 9 to 5 by doing something else until that something else makes me so much that I can give up the thing that I'm doing on the side, because I don't believe in
right.
side hustles.
That's for another episode.
That's for a whole nother episode. We'll do a whole thing on why
Whole
side
other
hustles is
episode.
nonsense.
Okay, so I would say number 4
Hmm.
would be meaningful relationships. I
Oh, I
think
love that.
super important to have that social connection and support,
Mhm.
and take it a step further and creating a network. I mean, let's face it, there's a reason they say it's who you know. And
Absolutely.
it really is who you know. You could be applying for a job, there's a bazillion applications. Now, if you were to say, look at your network, who do you know that maybe works in that company? Reach out to
Mm.
them. Can they put in a good word for you? Using your network and having, meaningful relationships is
Mm.
definitely key to success and a
I love that.
recipe. Yeah. I think my last one would be personal growth.
Mm.
I'm sure people are going to get not, a little bit unhappy when I say this, but the word content for me makes my skin crawl. I hate it. I hate that
Wow.
word. I don't want to be content. I feel like, to me, that word represents I give up. I've settled. I'm done. That's it. I'm content. I have no need to strive for anything else, and I don't want anything more than I have. For me, that word is not in my vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
I never want to be content, because for me, I don't know why I interpret it as lazy, but that
Mm.
is what it means for me. So I think personal growth is something that, so what I do every year in January, I say I'm going to learn one new thing this year that I don't already know. I will learn something new every year. And sometimes it's more than one thing if it's like something simple, but I do implement that every year as a goal.
I love that. So I think Jesse Itzler speaks about that. He says to have a masogi, this Japanese idea of having one big thing that
Right.
defines your year. I'm paraphrasing anyone that's out there that's a Jesse Itzler disciple. But I think that's such a beautiful thing. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to show the differences between Alicia and I. And I'm going to use a story as an example. Many, many years ago, there was a party, and it was a party given by a billionaire, and it was on Shelter Island. And in this party was Kurt, I think it's Vonnegut, or Vonnegut. Those, again, please forgive me if I paraphrase. Famous writer, but he's with another famous writer, a guy called Joseph Heller. And Joseph Heller had written, again, look these people up. They are the two biggest authors of the time. Kurt, Vonnegut, and Joseph Heller, Heller. And they're walking around in this beautiful home on Shelter Island. And I think it's Joseph turns to Kurt and says, "This is a hedge fund manager. And did you know that in a single day, he makes more money than you've made in your entire life?" And by the way, just for those who don't know, Heller wrote one of the most successful novels of all time, Catch 22. Heller looks straight back at Kurt and says, "Yes, but I have something he will never, ever have." To which Kurt says, "And what could that possibly be?" And Heller says, "I have enough. I am
Mm,
content." And I think there is something beautiful about being content. I think when I was younger, I I couldn't imagine being content. I couldn't imagine feeling like I had accomplished all the things I wanted to accomplish, that I had become the person I always wanted to become. And I think somehow through reading or research or time alone, or I kind of realized that having enough in yourself doesn't mean not wanting other things. It just means knowing that when you go to bed, you are everything you need. And we mentioned Rumi earlier. I think it's at the end of the book with Rumi wrote, where he says, in the end, we don't ascend to become something else. We simply remember. We remember that we were always enough. We were the gift the world needed. We were the gift that we needed. We were our own heroes to come and save ourselves. So I agree and disagree that we need something to chase, and we also need to realize simultaneously that we're enough and that we have enough, and that is one of the toughest things in the world to have. Enough, the most potent word, the most eloquent word spoken, this crazy underused concept that whoever has the most toys when they die wins was wrong. We just die, and hopefully that the properties and the monies and the attentions and the appreciations and the blessings and the awards and the recognition and the toys is never enough if you haven't realized that you are enough and that you have enough in yourself. That's my part of the recipe.
I think that's a gorgeous way to put it, for sure. If you're talking in that sense of knowing you are enough as a person and being content in that way, for sure, I agree with what you're saying. That's definitely part of the mindset, right? I mean, it takes it all back to, just knowing who you are and what's possible, and yeah, and I think someday I would love to say I've achieved it all and I don't need anything. I don't think I'm ever going to say that, honestly.
I hope
Just
on
kidding,
this
I'm
show
kidding.
we all get to witness the day that you
I'm
realize
going to get on the show and I'm going to be like, guess what? I am content.
I have enough. Yes, that's going to
I
be our
have
goal.
enough.
Yes. We're going to interview enough people that you realize
Mhm.
all your gratitude, all your blessings, and everyone that listens is going to feel the same way and go, I now have the rich life recipe.
You bring up a good point. Gratitude. I think I left that out. That has to be in my top 6. I think one of the greatest questions I always ask successful entrepreneurs or any of the celebrities that I've ever done events with is, what are the first 3 things you do when you wake up?
Mm.
And there's been several studies that the most successful people make their bed. That's the first thing and the number one thing. And the reason why is because it's a sense of accomplishment and starts your day off on a positive. It's one small thing that you can achieve and accomplish and kick off your day. So I would definitely ask those 3 questions. And I think the second one for me would be gratitude. That's where I say what I'm grateful for every day. I have a journal, I write in it every day. And then my third thing is I meditate. I visualize physically what my life is going to look like in 5 years. Tangible, very tangible. You want to like smell the flowers. You want to feel it as if it already has happened. And then that leads to the manifesting. So those for me are the first 3 things I do, but that would fall in with the gratitude part that I would say is number 6. So now I'm going to turn it to you. What are your 6 recipes? Ingredients for the
Ingredients,
recipe.
exactly.
Yes, we need the ingredients.
I think number 1 is to build sustainable habits. That anything done once is very rarely worth doing. That what's worth doing is something you can do again and again and again, and something that you want to do again and again and again. And that doesn't mean that you have to do it in that way. I'm a firm believer that I am an intellectual athlete, that my job is to do sprints, that I rest, I research, then I attack, then I stop, then I look at the data, then I recover, and I decide if I want to do it again. But doing that scheduling, it allows me to defeat burnout. I've had burnout twice, and it's horrible. And I realized that it's because I kept going and going and going and going and going versus having these sprints. And if I look at all athletes, that's exactly what they have. They work for a season. They don't work for a lifetime. They're not constantly doing basketball. They have a basketball season, then they have a rest season, then they have a recovery season, then they watch the tapes and they work out what they loved and what they didn't, what worked and what didn't. And so I do that. I believe that you need to build time, exactly what you said, for physical activity, for meditation, for social connection, for reflection, definitely for gratitude. Um, I think you need to zig when everyone else zags. I think being a contrarian has been something that has helped me insanely throughout my life. I was in podcasting in 2015 when podcasting wasn't the biggest thing. I, went into looking at buying businesses when people didn't realize that buying a business was far easier than starting a business. I looked at angel investing before it was like the platforms were created to make angel investing easier. I pre-sell before I build, as opposed to a lot of people who build the product and the service, then go out to see if the people want it. I'm like, tell me what you want, pay me for what you want, and pay me enough that I think it's worth doing, and then I go and build it. And that's helped me so much. Having a different approach, testing assumptions about what works and what doesn't, never deciding, by the way, what works and what doesn't, allowing the market to decide if it's something they actually want. I'll tell you another thing, and maybe perhaps you and I have this in common, because we've talked about some things we don't have in common, like solving rich people problems. I think for years I try to solve poor people problems, and poor people want the help, but they just can't afford to pay for it. And then it's so difficult to keep working for them. So what I've realized
That's brilliant.
yeah, I'll solve rich people problems in a way that has a 60% profit ratio. And then I have that money to give to other people. I have the ability to give to charity or build charities or give free support or give free instruction or coaching or mentorship. And I think the three phases of every person's life should be a phase of learning, a phase of earning, and then a phase of returning, of just giving it all away before you die. And I learned that from my mentor, Felix Dennis. I think you shouldn't follow conventional wisdom. I think if everyone is saying go and do as much content as possible, you should think about in real life events and doing more face to face. I think you do need multiple income streams, but I don't think multiple income streams is the way to make a lot of money. I think one stream of income is the way to make money, and then to take that stream and to reinvest it into other ways by building systems makes a huge, huge difference in your life. I think you have to, like you said, invest in well-being, whether that's meditation, physical health, strong relationships. I don't think it's worth sacrificing health for wealth ever. I think everyone should get rich at least once, just so you can realize it's not going to solve all your problems. It just solves all your money problems. If you have a bad relationship with your family, and I say this is someone with a bad relationship with your family, making money for yourself or making money for them is not going to make your relationship any better.
Can't buy love.
Can't buy. You can rent it, but that's a whole nother story.
Rent.
I think everyone should develop valuable skills. On my Rich Life recipe, I've realized that if I did not stack skills and present it in a unique way to an audience that could afford the thing that I was solving for, I would not have the things I have. But also realizing that you can build expertise in anything, right? I had no business to be in events. I'd never organized my own birthday party until I was 30 years old or 33 years old. I think you should try and stay independent for as long as possible. Own your audience, own your customer base, rather than trying to rely on these platforms, because these platforms can ban you or drop you or block you. And I don't want, as I said, I'd never want to be a boss, never have a boss. I think you should have direct relationships with people rather than depending on these middle people like intermediaries. I think you should control as much as humanly possible when it comes to your assets and relationships. And lastly, I think you need to be fully aware of leverage. I think until you understand how leverage works, you will always be under someone's thumb. And there are only 4 types of leverage, right? There's cash, which is a great leverage because you can pretty much solve most problems, money problems, with cash. Then you've got labor. If you've got 1,000 people helping you, you're probably always going to beat me with nobody helping me. If you've then got code, if you can build 1,000 robots to help you, 1,000 AI brains to help you, you're going to beat me every single time. And then I think the last one is the thing we're doing right now, right? Which is content. Like, make it once, send it out into the world, and it can be used again and again and again. Like, I'm still getting paid for books I wrote years ago, for pieces of technology that I came up with years and years and years ago. Speaking arrangements. Like I just did one last week that someone found a piece of content that I did on YouTube that they were like, oh, we'd love to pay you to come and speak about this thing. And I was like, I forgot I even did that talk 7 years ago, right? Like this little piece of content is this massive leverage. Writing one book that gets read 1 million times, so if you understand those leverage points, you already have a better chance, a better recipe at a rich life than almost anyone else. I think I think that's my recipe. That's what's worked really well for me over, I don't know, I've been working since I was 5. So a very, very long time.
Well, I think you were dropping some bars there for sure. That was a
Thank you.
lot of really good advice.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope this whole show, which by the way, every single Wednesday, and if you're enjoying it, please give us 5 stars and write one word that you heard in this episode that really resonated with you in the comments. And make sure to subscribe, because I think one of the things about subscribing that people don't realize, even though you always hear that when you watch YouTube, is don't forget to subscribe, is that we kind of drop in your inbox, right? That we immediately are there waiting for you to give you recipes, not just recipes from us and our own lives, but the recipes from the guests that we're going to bring on. And on that subject, I'd love to know from you before we end this episode, what kind of guests are you hoping to bring on? What kind of recipes are you hoping to bring into the conversation that will help our listeners simply by listening to the show once a week?
And I think these ingredients also change over time, right?
Mm.
I think there's, as you evolve and maybe you're getting into different types of business, I think, like you were saying earlier, the skills change.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to what I also said earlier, which is always learning something new, elevating yourself. Skills have to change, and you have to adapt and be able to quickly change direction. If you're not one of those people who likes to take risk or change direction quickly, you kind of like the same day after day, knowing what you're going to get, then probably starting a business isn't for you, because it's never the same. There's different challenges every single day. And you don't want to have to outsource everything. Like you were talking about leverage, right? Knowing how to do a lot of these things yourself by advancing those skills gives you the leverage to not have to spend a ton of money to outsource everything. So I think skills evolve over time, right?
Absolutely.
I think recipes will change. So yeah, we'd love to know what type of guests you'd like to hear from.
What kind of guests would you like to hear from? That's what I'd like to know.
Me personally.
See.
I am all about the brain right now.
Okay.
So I've done a deep dive, again, learning something new every year. And I think what typically helps me go down these rabbit holes is when I'm struggling with something personally. So my health last year, for the last few years, has not been at the level that it typically would be. And I think when you know yourself and you know your body, you know when something's off. And I've been off for several years. And I'm one of those people that will try anything. I'm kind of like a guinea pig. I will try anything. You tell me, I will try it. And then I decide for myself. So I've tried quite a few things. And I think that's what led me now to cleansing the cell. But prior to that, I was looking into the brain. I was having a lot of brain fog, ADD, not being able to focus, and started going down this rabbit hole of different holistic practitioners that focus specifically on the brain, which led me to the Amen Clinic. And I had a brain scan done. And, I think this is something that everyone should be able to do at a young age. They should scan their brain. The results of that test literally explained my personality to a T. And it drives off of where your brain is active, where it's underactive, your understanding of certain things, how you perceive emotion. One of the tests that you do for cognitive issues is you look at faces and you have to select the emotion the face is expressing. Well, let's just say I failed. So the doctor, when he read the results, was like, I've never seen this before. He goes, you basically got all of them wrong, except for like happy and sad. Those I knew.
Okay.
So there were some that were like, I wasn't sure. Like, I really, is he disturbed? Is he aggravated? Is he stressed? I don't know. So anyway, I failed that, right? So the flip side of that test is facial recognition. So they show you several faces very quickly, and then they show them all again, and you have to pick the face you just saw. So matching them, right? You saw one up like 10 minutes ago. Now you got to find the one you just saw. And I got all of them correct. So basically, I never forget a face. I just don't know what you're feeling. So my disconnect to emotion is spot on. And I think that comes from not connecting to your own emotion as well. But it was so eye opening and really enlightening. And there are physical things that you can do for yourself to make those connections again. And one of them is yoga, the mind body connection. And the other one for me, because one of my areas of my brain was more underactive than overactive, is playing table tennis or tennis. And then I read tennis can extend your life 10 years.
Wow.
Any kind of tennis. Other sports, they give you longevity, but maybe a year or two. Tennis gives you the longest 10-year longevity. Table tennis, regular tennis, and it's funny because I don't like tennis at all, but I do like ping pong. I do like table tennis, and it helps your brain. So that for me was a journey, and I would love to have on a guest who specializes in the brain, whether it's Dr. Amen or a biohacker, someone like that. I feel like the brain really tells a lot. And one of the other things I learned is, kids suffer from ADD, focus, attention, has to do with the food you're eating, which they don't talk about. They rather, nothing against drugs or prescribing drugs if it's working for you. I would always like to go the route of holistic first. And, some people have a reaction to folic acid, which also causes ADD. If you suffer from a specific gene break, which I do, once again, going down the rabbit hole, but definitely someone who focuses on that. I think it's super important.
Well, the exciting thing is we have a neuroscientist coming on the show, so make sure to subscribe. You'll get to hear that, and she is incredible. Cambridge, Oxford, PhD, masters, NLP, insane woman who I think is going to blow everyone's mind. We have a biohacker coming on the show later in this first season. We have someone who I'm trying to get on the show who is a racquetball person who can talk about the benefits of racquetball, which would include tennis, ping pong, and pickleball being the three, and why that has suddenly picked up and become so popular. So you want to definitely listen to that episode. And we're going to talk about the sort of conventional medicine versus what you called holistic medicine and what the differences are and why they're so contentious, but also why is biohacking contentious? These are the many things we're going to talk about. Remember, our three pillars are health, wealth, and wisdom. And of course, by focusing on health and then wealth, and then hopefully giving you wisdom around these things, I think you're going to find that this might be your favorite show for nothing else than that we bring you people that aren't the same people on every show, and that we give you actual real life ingredients to a rich life, not platitudes, not posters on a wall, not just be nice, but actually what it is to be nice or just be healthy. What is it to be really healthy? How do you prevent disease as opposed to treat disease? How do you prevent ADD versus dealing with ADD, which is what everyone else seems to be talking about? So I think these are all the reasons I hope I've given you to listen, to subscribe, to give us 5 stars, to write one word that resonated with you during your time with us today. And I want to personally, and I know I speak for Alicia, say thank you so much for your time and your attention. In the end, that is all we have. That is all our life is, what we paid attention to during the time that we had.
And I'd also like to just add in there that we are going to have some controversial guests on, which I love.
Very.
I'm all about controversy. And I think one of them is a professional poker player, which, has a huge, some people are skeptical, some people say it's addicting, but there is a skill set that is taught in poker, especially for women who might be risk adverse.
Mm.
There's a lot to go into that. That's a huge skill set, and I'm super excited to interview our professional poker player later in the episodes.
So make sure to subscribe, make sure to listen, and tell us as well what you're hoping to get from this show. And then we can do our best to go out and get it. And of course, as we mentioned, it is about you. This whole show isn't about Alicia and myself. It is very much about you. So make yourself heard, make yourself known, and we will do our best to serve you. Thank you so much for listening to episode 1 of The Rich Life Recipe.
Thank you.